It is often said that dreams represent a portion of oneself, whether that's bringing their fears and aspirations to the forefront of their mind, or giving an unclouded look at how they feel about the world around them and the people that they've met within it, even the people that they hold close. With that being the case, in episode 4 of Weiss Queendom, when we see Weiss's dream for the first time, there is a lot to delve into with the imagery and symbolism that is present, giving a look at how Weiss feels not only about the world around her, but how she feels about herself, the inner turmoil that she's going through at that time. And in this video, I want to delve into how the world of Weiss's dream is structured and what that tells about Weiss herself at this point in the RWBY series. So, spoilers ahead for episode 4 of Weiss Queendom. Now, as RWBY is traversing the world of Weiss's dream, she comes across many new and interesting things, each of which is telling about Weiss's mentality at that point in time. And one of the most significant of these things that she comes across is honestly one of the first things we see in that episode, and to me is the most telling of Weiss's mentality. And that is the road sign that she comes across, if you can really call it that. It is twisted and mangled in an unrecognizable way, so you really, trying to use this to find your way, you will be unable to. And when RWBY first comes across it, she looks at it and thinks that's just like Weiss. You can never tell what her true intentions are, what she truly means, etc. And that is only the surface. RWBY is seeing that as the surface level of how she sees Weiss. But what's very significant about this twisted and distorted sign is that is a representation of how Weiss feels. She is confused. She does not know where to go, where to look, and she is in fact lost. If we scale out and look at the world as a whole, when RWBY encounters this sign, it is in the white expanse of the outer world, the outer portion of Weiss's dream, outside of her empire. The entire world of Weiss's dream is in some way representative of Atlas, given that the snow is everywhere. Atlas is where Weiss comes from, covered in snow, being the icy continent that it is. But, moreover, the kingdom or the empire that she has set up, the city within the walls, is representative of Atlas. Everything outside of it is the unknown, is the outside world to Weiss, how she views the outside world outside of Atlas. And this is clearly demonstrated to me for the fact that there's a train track leading from the kingdom to wherever else, to an unknown destination. And that's where trains and shipments of dust come across to get to the empire itself. But there are no trains or train tracks on Atlas that we saw when we were there in Volumes 7 and 8. This represents what Weiss knows about the outside world. Before coming to Beacon Academy, she probably had never left Atlas in her life and only had heard stories about the other kingdoms. And those stories came from her father, learning from him that the shipments of dust that were traveling by train in the other kingdoms were attacked by Faunus. Now, Weiss's views on the Faunus and other individuals in this dream I'm going to address in another video, because there's a lot to delve into there, but by the fact that this train and train tracks exist within the dream world represents to me that everything outside of the walls of the Empire is representative of the outer world itself, how Weiss views the outside world. It is empty, barren, unknown. Weiss knows nothing about the outside world other than what she's been told by her father. And that is why this sign is so significant. She is lost in the outside world. She does not know where to go, who to trust, and what to do. She is walking in the middle of a snowstorm and trying to find her way. But that's not the only thing that's significant about this sign. The way that it is twisted, the shape that it takes, is it not representative of something else? Does it not look almost exactly like the Schnee logo, her emblem, the snowflake that it is? The significance of this sign, of a sign meant to lead someone on their way, to prevent them from getting lost, to tell them where it is that they need to go. The significance of it being shaped like the Schnee logo is pretty impactful. To me, and maybe I'm reading too far into this, but in Weiss's mind, it is saying that every path leads back to Schnee, leads back to the Schnee Dust Company, leads back to her father. And that is very impactful, because we know that she came to Beacon Academy, that she has tried to get away from that, to break away from her father. But the fact that she's so lost and confused, and in the back of her mind, now represented in this dream, everything is leading back there, and she doesn't know how to break that. Something that RWBY will likely have to do later on, and hopefully RWBY or Yang or Blake will be able to realize the significance of what they are seeing in the dream as a representation of Weiss's mentality and how she's feeling on the inside. There is a lot to delve into, and hopefully the characters themselves come to understand each other a little bit better throughout this dream. Now, moving on from the sign, which is representative of how Weiss feels about the outside world, we get to the Empire, the Ice Queendom itself, that is representative of how Weiss feels about Atlas and about her own inner world as well. It is a walled city. There are multiple walls put up in there. We see that in RWBY's map. There is an outer wall, an inner wall, and then one even further that encompasses the palace, I guess, or where the Schnee household, the Schnee manor, would actually be. There are 3 different walls. The outermost wall, we can see that there are spikes along it to deter any outside threats. And to me, that says that Weiss is fearful of anything she doesn't know, of things outside of Atlas, things outside of the world that she has come to be accustomed to. And these walls, this segregation, is not only, representative of the segregation that we see in Atlas, with there being 3 different sections, one, of course, being the people of Mantle, the drone workers that we see throughout the city, the people that are impoverished and only exist to work for the Schnee Dust Company. That is the way of thinking that Weiss has been led to believe by her father, Jacques. The words that the statues of him had been speaking throughout this episode, throughout the city, that it is a privilege to work for the Schnee Dust Company, work for cheap labor, and support the system. As for what Weiss feels about her father, again, that's going to be covered in a separate video because there is a lot to delve into there, but as we get to the next area of the city, the next set of walls, this is the higher society, the upper echelon of Atlas, where the people there have some more individuality. They are shadows of people, no one that has an actual face, no one that Weiss can give an actual face to. We've seen in volumes 4 and 5 that Weiss has met a number of the upper echelon of society, that they are gossiping about other kingdoms and the fall of Beacon Academy. We saw Weiss lash out at one of those parties in volume 4, and none of those people have a face in Weiss's mind. None of them left a significant enough impact for Weiss to actually represent them in her subconscious. But the rumors, the gossip, and the way that they go about life is represented here in the shadows. It is very interesting to see how Weiss views things. But then we get into the central core of the Empire. This is where Weiss resides, where we see her dark and gloomy citadel. It looks very similar in design to the Schnee Manor that we saw in volumes 7 and 8, but here is very dark, very gloomy, very lonely. This is Weiss's inner sanctum. This is where she lives. This is how she views the Schnee Manor. It is a dark and lonely place, and a place devoid of human warmth. Her mother represented by a shadow, providing no warmth to Weiss. Her father, an overwhelming, looming presence. Her brother, just a bat on the wall. And then there is Weiss, alone in the center of it all. And the fact that there are walls surrounding each section of this city is more impactful than just showing the segregation of Atlas itself, being a physical representation of it. These walls also represent the mental barriers that Weiss has put up to protect herself, to keep herself from being hurt and being vulnerable. She needs to remain strong as the heir to the Schnee Dust Company. But these walls also represent something further. They are the walls that Jacques himself has put up to keep Weiss trapped. Weiss is not allowed to leave. She's not allowed to go outside the walls, to communicate with the commoners. She is meant to be a Schnee, to be better than all of that. We can see this represented by how dark and gloomy her inner sanctum is, but the rest of the world is bright and vibrant. The rest of the world that Weiss wants to enter, but she is kept within her cold, dark prison. Snow White is entrapped here. And by the end of the series, we will see her break out of her prison, break out of her shell with the help of her friends. These are the main things that I've seen with the structure of the world itself and how Weiss views the world, how her own mentality is represented through the world of this dream. As I mentioned, there is a lot to cover with how she views groups of people, as well as the people that are close to her, in particular her family, that I'm going to delve into in other videos. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below in regards to the world of Weiss's dream itself. There are a couple other notable things about the world. Namely, the first thing that we see when we are introduced to the dream world is the purple sky that has glyphs floating around it. Now, these glyphs are slightly different than Weiss's own emblem. They are mainly Weiss's emblem, but 2 points of the snowflake are extended out, almost as if they are combining her own emblem with Pyrrha's. That Pyrrha's lance is kind of extending those 2 points of the snowflake, possibly a hint at how important Pyrrha is at this point in time to Weiss's mentality, to her own self-worth, and to how she views the world, that strength is paramount, that Pyrrha is at the pinnacle, and Weiss wants to be there as well, or perhaps already views herself to be there, and that her and Pyrrha should be at the top together. And then, of course, the structure of the city, how everything is run by drones. This pretty much being representative of Atlas, that Atlas seems to have the Elysian Knights walking around and doing most of the patrolling of the city. I think that is kind of just a straight representation of that, just altered in a way to fit Weiss's dream in that way. But the kingdom itself is very inhuman. Everything is robotic. Even all of the Kleins have become robots. There is no human warmth in this city, other than the dummies, but those are all people that Weiss is pushing away. She is trying to keep them locked up and keep them away from herself. This is a very cold and empty world where Weiss is confused and afraid of things outside of what she knows. And that is very telling of Weiss's mentality in Volume 1. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how much more we will delve into Weiss's mentality as this series moves forward. This is only episode 4, and there's 12 in total, so 8 more episodes where we can see more of Weiss's own inner world, and ideally, maybe we'll see some of RWBY's, Yang's, or Blake's inner worlds as well, and how they feel on the inside. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. In the meantime, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you have any other insights into Weiss's dream world? I'm not a psychologist or anything of the like, so I'm sure there's things that I missed, possibly things that I misinterpreted as well, so please feel free to let me know your thoughts and how you view Weiss's world. But with that being said, if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, more RWBY theory videos, more discussions, more coverage of Ice Queendom and RWBY Volume 9 as it's going to air in 2023, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7 and I'll see you guys in the next video.